Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I'm Braden. That guy's Tim, and we have some breaking stuff coming out for finally, guys, we've achieved common sense. It's happened. We've made it because there's a new rule closing that pesky gun show loophole, even though it doesn't exist. They made it. They did it. And it was just announced today. And that's what we're going to break through. So as we're going through this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. This is the channel where we go into the 2A happenings and going on of the day and then send it out with some analysis, some amazing commentary, and humor and sarcasm. And with that, Tim, don't they make you happy? The common sense has finally prevailed.
Yes, I mean, finally we've reached parity in gun control. You know, 20,000 laws weren't quite enough. And so since they can't really pass any new ones because they don't have the support in the legislature, they're just going to go ahead and legislate through executive fiat. I can't wait until the Supreme Court finally hears Chevron deference because it can undo all these last minute.
No rules. Chevron deference. We've heard it. They just got to rule on it.
Well, yeah, right. Until they rule on it. Nice distinction there. But when we finally hear back from the SCOTUS, let's say, on the subject.
There you go. It's like an important distinction.
Yes, it's an important distinction. And so I can't wait until we finally hear their thoughts on this because I'm hoping they share our opinions. And it will undo all this stuff. So Biden's just frantically trying to push anything he can through all the federal agencies right now, knowing full well 100%. That the SCOTUS is going to have something to say about Chevron deference, which is how they're getting these rules, which have the power of an actual law, implemented.
Yes. No, that's exactly correct. And before we even get into what they're doing and what they're saying and what it will mean, Tim, this is something that has been kind of a pain in our butts for a while now.
My entire life.
The executive bureaucrat. Yeah, it's true. The executive bureaucratic overreach, which has really been kicked into high gear underneath the Biden administration because, I mean, I said it on my channel early on, they don't have the juice legislatively through Congress to do what they want to do. So they have to do it through the executive bureaucratic state. And to be fair, they went so much further than I thought they were going to be able to do through the writing of a pen. But these executive orders are doing something very simple. And if we're going to boil this down, if you're watching this and you're like, what's the big deal about this? Here's the big deal. This entire thing, all of them, the executive orders against our gun rights have been designed to placate the gun controlling elements of constituencies for the Democrats, for the gun controllers of the Biden administration. So what they're doing is they're abusing the federal law system and the congressional law system and the checks and balances by overusing the executive bureaucratic powers underneath the executive branch and writing laws from the executive branch, which is not in their constitutional purview, in order to feed their own power by giving the constituency some raw meat, which has already been ruled unconstitutional in a lot of cases, like the debt load or the debt relief that they're talking about that they just announced randomly, even though SCOTUS said no. It's all based on their own power and reinforcing their own power at the behest of your rights, which is then also, it's so gross, Tim.
I know.
Because our rights are not currency and they're using our rights for their own power.
They are. And not only that, what you just referenced, which is particularly frustrating for me, is when they're talking about, you just mentioned debt relief. What you're talking about there is erasing federal school loans to students that applied for federal assistance, right? So they just want to wipe that away.
Right.
SCOTUS said you can't do that. They're finding ways around the SCOTUS's decision.
Anyway.
They just go ahead and do it anyway. So there's really no accountability. And this isn't the first time nor the first president that has done something like this. I think Roosevelt did something similar. So, and in a big way. And so this is why it's so important that we stop this practice, because what they're doing here is basically, in the case of the student debt that they're trying to erase, they're buying votes with your tax dollars. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so that should be criminal in and of itself. And what we're talking about here is they're using their executive fiat to reinterpret existing law where there's nothing in existing law that would allow them to do this, but they're just reinterpreting it creatively in such a way that they can find a way to do it anyway. And this is all being done under that mystical Chevron deference, which became a thing in 1984. And hopefully the SCOTUS finally undoes and does away with, because basically what these agencies are doing is they're trying to use ambiguity in laws to enact their own policies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just wrong. If there's any ambiguity, it needs to go back to the Congress and let them clarify and vote on it. It can't be.
Well, that's the way that it's supposed to work.
Right.
It's supposed to work that way. But the thing about this, and I'm going to get into this in a second, you just hit some, you know what, let's just go and then we'll just let it happen because we're already starting to open these this can of worms. Doctor, this is number one. Biden to close gun show loophole and expand background checks for firearms. The new rule comes under legislation passed after Uvalde. Now, that's the Safer Communities Act, the Senate bipartisan one, that Republicans are responsible for.
Yes.
John Cornyn is responsible for this.
Yep.
Tom Tillis.
But, fortunately, the Republicans are very judicious in their review of this law before it became law, and they made sure that there were proper protections in there.
Don't you say it. Don't you say it.
And this is the net result of their proper protections. Gross violations of our rights using executive fiat once again.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm going to give you a clip that's not actually in this segment, but the clip where Chris Murphy's like, yeah, they really fought for due process. That was a really hard ask. You mother. Oh, good. I'm going to get so spicy this episode.
Ask.
Oh, God, it was so difficult. It was difficult, but we gave it to you. It was already ours. I'm going to get so... Okay, here we go. Gets my goat, man. Like, I can usually keep it together really well. This burns me up. This is number two. The Biden administration is moving to expand background checks for gun purchases, fulfilling a key demand of advocates following the deadly shooting in Uvalde. That key demand for advocates part, that's the constituency through the gun control groups. The final rule, expected to be submitted by the ATF on Thursday, so that's tomorrow, would eliminate a loophole that has allowed sales of guns without background checks of guns outside brick and mortar stores. God, it's not... Gun show loophole doesn't exist. It is literally fiction.
Yep. But,
but we got to fix it.
They want to regulate every aspect of your life. And, you have to go get permission now to sell your private property. These people are not dealers. And if I want to get rid of a gun that I bought, I just recently bought one, get on my X account. I just bought a Shadow 2 compact and I'm not happy with it. Oh. I wish I hadn't done it now. And so that gun may very well wind up getting traded for something else. And people do that all the time. Now, I happen to be an FFL and I'll just move it through my own gun store, but not everybody has that luxury, right? So if you just go to sell your private property, you jump on, any number of websites or whatever and post it for sale or auction it off. That there's nothing wrong with that, although those typically go through, FFLs unless you do a private party transfer face to face in the same state. And that's what they're just basically trying to do, is shut down your ability to transfer your private property to somebody else. And I haven't seen the ruling yet. I guess it gets posted. What did they say today, or it's getting posted soon?
It's getting announced tomorrow. So Thursday. Well, no. Excuse me, Thursday. No, today.
Okay, I thought it was today. So sometime today we're gonna get the actual wording of it. But this could go so far as to, for like myself, for my best man, I gave him a firearm as a present. Christmas time, I've given firearms to family members as presents, right? And so that would suddenly potentially become illegal under this, because now I'm transferring a firearm without a background check. Now, I didn't take any money for those because they were gifts, but if you were to sell to your best friend a firearm like the CZ Shadow 2 that I don't want, if I wanted to sell that to my cameraman and I do it outside of my FFL, I'm now dealing without a license, even though I have a license.
Right. And this is specifically what he's talking, even though I have a license.
But seriously, they could stick me for that because it would be a private transfer.
Yeah.
Right? I could lose my license.
Correct. Yep. And this is number 3. Don't even get me going on the license thing. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm so close to the edge, Tim.
I know.
All right. This is number 3. The rule was issued under a provision of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. John Cornyn, Tom Tillis, Republicans, great job. Jody Ernst as well. It requires that anyone who sells guns for profit to have a license, that buyers be subject to a background check, including at firearm shows and flea markets. Okay. The thing about this is, guys, understand that the only way that this was possible is if they build in rules to then reinforce and lay the groundwork for other rules. For example, I'm going to show you in a second. If you change the definition of what a gun dealer is, and like they just said, who sells a gun for profit, you're now considered a gun dealer. Well, that puts you under the FFL system. So therefore, you have to run a background check system or a background check on every single person because you're a dealer, because they changed the definition of dealer. So they changed A, and then they wrote a law for B, and then C, look, gun control. And it's so irritating.
And this is how these things get so convoluted too, right? So, I've been a gun collector for my entire life. What about a firearm I bought 30 years ago and paid $500 for that's now worth $10,000 because it's so rare? And I go sell it for $10,000. Is that all profit, or how do we break that down? Right?
Dude,
but and if you buy a Glock 19 and you sell it to your buddy because you want to buy something else, you don't want the polymer striker fired pistol thing for whatever reason, and you make $1 profit on that transaction, whoops,
you're now
you're a dealer.
If
make sure you lose money
in its original box. Yeah, exactly. Make sure you lose money. So if you had it in your original box, ooh, now you're a dealer. Have you had it for less than 30 days? Oh, now you're a dealer. I mean, literally, it's so ambiguous on what they're calling a dealer in order to cast the net so broad that then they can change the rules for gun dealers, and now they caught everybody in it.
Yep.
In fishing, it's called byproduct or bycatch. And I'm like, guys, this is either two things, Tim, and this is where, God in heaven, if you're a Republican and you're in the Senate and you're saying you're for gun rights, right? Well, there's only one of two things that could be going on right now. One, you're not really for gun rights, and you're really just a rhino who's walking around saying you are to get votes and get power, but you really are all about curtailing the Second Amendment rights of citizens. That's one. Or two, you're so stupid that you can't figure out what they're going to do with a broad-based law with the executive bureaucratic state has been running roughshod for the last 3 to 4 years of broad-based laws. You're either corrupt or you're stupid. And both of those aren't good.
Right.
Oh, God. So frustrating.
Corrupt stupidity. Good way to describe it.
Oh, both? We can do both?
Yeah, it's corrupt stupidity.
No.
I like that.
Stamp of approval. I like it.
Corrupt stupidity. Yeah.
Put that on the wall next to dang commies.
Dang commies and Davey Hogg. Commies. I can't wait to talk about him in a future episode.
Oh, he's coming.
In a future episode.
He's coming.
Yeah.
Well,
commies. Okay, anyway.
Oh, commies.
Strolling down memory lane over here.
Dang commies, man.
All right. Well.
No. Oh, no. Hold on. I got more.
Oh, I know. I'm jumping over to notes here because I want to hear more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I want more.
Because this isn't bad enough.
This part. No, it's not. This is the part that just makes me make fists with my hands. This is part of number 5. Gun safety groups have pushed the White House to use it to expand background checks by clarifying which entities are considered engaged in the business of selling firearms. Doing so would not fulfill the president's plea for universal background checks, as it would not apply to all sales, including private transfers. But the rules publication still marks a step forward in the administration's more incremental efforts to regulate gun sales through implementation of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. They just said it right there,
Thanks,
Tim. It is literally in Politico. They're even saying it. Come on.
And I always love how these obviously leftists that write these articles phrase things. Gun safety groups. Boy, that sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? How about we call them what they are? Gun banning groups. But that doesn't sound as palatable. That isn't as marketable. So let's just go with gun safety groups because everybody wants a little gun safety in their life, right?
I feel better.
My God, these people. It's like the Safer Communities Act. It doesn't make anything safer. It's like the Patriot Act. There's nothing patriotic about it. I mean, and you'll notice that it was Bush that gave us the Patriot Act. So I'm equally critical of Republicans as I am Democrats. So yeah. I love how these politicians just bundle things up like the Inflation Reduction Act. Let's add $10 trillion to the inflation, but we're going to call it something the exact opposite.
But it's called so nice. It's so pleasant. It's so pleasant. And
how could you vote against reasonable?
Exactly. It's so reasonable. Common sense. I'm going to wrap this informational point and we'll break it down a little bit further. But with this quote, and this is from an administration official, listen to what they are comfortable saying out loud. Quote, "We know this doesn't get all the way there, and this law can only do so much. And it's why the president is firm that Congress needs to finish the job and make sure we have background checks on all gun sales," an administration official said. I don't know how much more we can scream from the rooftops across all spectrums. They are trying to build a universal background check system that is dependent on a national registry system so they know where every single gun is. And they have lots of little levers they can pull to utilize that information.
And then they want to pass
that's what they're doing.
Reasonable safety measures like then once they have that registration and the location of all those firearms, then they want to do something like Ethan's Law where they can come and just make sure it's all for safety, folks. We just want to come and make sure that the firearms are properly stored. I mean, who could
It's all
oppose
about
such
safety.
common sense safety when you get a knock at 2
So
o'clock
safe.
in the afternoon when everybody's at work and maybe your kid's homesick and the police decide they want to come in and just check your house out to make sure all your private property is stored safely. That's what they do in
It's
Europe,
just,
in Germany.
I know they do. But
Oh,
the point is, dude, it comes to, it really boils down to this simple point. I don't know if it's complacency that people don't think it could ever happen here. So that's why this doesn't upset the general population. I know it upsets the gun population.
Well, they have it in their heads that,
but
well, it won't be abused. I
it will
trust my
never
government.
happen here.
Yeah.
It can't happen
My
here.
government has my best
And
interests at heart.
the reason that we have the rules that we have in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the reason that the government is put on such a tight leash, is because the government is one of the most apt organisms to run amok out there. We've seen it over and over and over again in humanity because government is an organism, and the organism prioritizes its own life over all else. And it has to boil down to communication. And I don't know what more people need to see in the general population to go, holy crap.
Yeah, I know.
It really is mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling.
Unless you're deeply entrenched in the 2A fight, things like this just go right past most people. They don't even see it. They don't read the news article. It's uninteresting to them. And then when they wake up one day and other rights are being infringed because of these infringements we're talking about here were allowed to happen, then they go, well, I don't understand how all this happened. Hello, we've been trying to tell you this entire time. And I know that one of the things in this clip that really grinds your gears, because it does mine, we know this doesn't get us all the way there. Please pass this law. It's the most revolutionary law in gun control history. I mean, we've accomplished so much here, but folks, this isn't really going to change the calculus at all.
It's not there.
It's just a baby step. We got to get a little further. Well, how much is a little further? Well, we just want plain English, jackwagon. What's a little further? Ban. That's where we want to push these people and make them say it. Right? When you see them talking like this, confront them and say, no, but what's the end game here? Since this doesn't get us all the way there, what does? If you could pass one more law and no more, one more, what would that law be? And the only way they can answer that is to ban guns, but they can't say that out loud. Well, unless you're unless you happen to have the last name O'Keefe, and you're sitting in a bar with somebody and they just somehow don't recognize you and you confess all your sins to them again and again and again.
Somehow. It just consistently happens.
I love that.
I don't know how they do it.
It's like, don't they know? Are they so desperate for a date? They're just going to go out there. And anyway, I love those videos. I truly do. Anyway.
Different thing for a different time. Yeah. But that's what's happening right now in the gun control world. I sure hope they get all the votes they want.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, you can't really say much else about all this because this is it's a reoccurring theme, and this certainly isn't the first time we've talked about it. But this is just yet another example of them doing it. And if you're tired of it, let us know in the comments. How do we correct course on this? Do we make changes to law and we actually hold representatives accountable for gross violations or attempted violations of our constitutional rights, like kick them out of Congress or worse, put them in jail? Let us know in the comments down below, because I've seen people talking about that. Thanks for watching Second Legacy. We'll talk to you guys soon.